Alright guys, let's talk about the latest terrorist attack that has occurred on American soil. So you probably already heard by now because it's been a couple of days, but on Sunday, or very early in the morning Sunday at 2 a.m. at a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida, there was a terrorist attack. The terrorist, that's what I'm going to call him, a terrorist, he's not a mass shooter, he's a terrorist, was supposedly affiliated with ISIS. Whether or not that's 100% true, I don't know, but it really doesn't matter if he was affiliated with ISIS or if he was just a lone wolf acting on ISIS's behalf, because either way it's still a terrorist attack. I don't understand why people bring up this whole, oh, he was a lone wolf instead of an actual ISIS terrorist. It doesn't matter. He still killed 50 people and injured 50 others, not to mention that at least 9 other people have already died in the hospital since the attack. But anyway, at 2 a.m. at the gay nightclub, the shooter started shooting up people, and for some reason it took 3 hours before the police actually broke in and killed the guy. Supposedly it was a hostage situation, but somehow in this hostage situation, he managed to kill 50 people and injure 53 others. So, if he's like actively shooting people during a hostage situation, I don't understand how it's actually a hostage situation at all. It's just a murder spree. It's basically what it is. So, to me, it doesn't sound like police were doing their job 100% the way they were supposed to be doing it, but, I'm not really going to judge them because it's, you got to be in the moment, in the shoes of the officers to know. And I do support law enforcement, so I'm not necessarily going to bash on them too much. But for more of the story, the shooter he was of Middle Eastern descent. He was born here in America, but his parents were Afghan refugees, I believe. And his ex-wife, who he was married to for just a few years, I think, claims that he was a very violent individual, and several times he was under investigation by the FBI, but he, 2 or 3 times, and he turned up as being a non-threatening person, even though his ex-wife, claims that he was a violent person. He was under investigation by the FBI, I think because his father had ties to some anti-American show or something. I don't know. You could probably look it up and you could probably figure it out. I just, going based off of what I've heard so far, and I don't really know a whole lot. But anyway, so he was investigated by the FBI 2 or 3 times. I think it was maybe 3 times. And all 3 times he came up as being a non-threatening individual. But, what about now? He killed 50 people, actually over 50 people by now. So is he a threatening individual now? I think so. And of course the anti-gunners are going to say, well, how could he own a gun if he was under investigation by the FBI? Well, the same reason that Hillary Clinton can run for president and be the Democratic nominee and be under investigation by the FBI. See what I did there? Anyway, he was under investigation by the FBI, like I said, but the way that the background checks work when buying a gun is if you have committed a crime and you're in the records as actually committing a crime, then you don't get a gun, or you get a waiting period, or whatever. And that's how the background checks work, and that's how they're always going to work, even though that they're calling for more background checks. They're going to work the same way. And I don't understand the whole background check argument, because we already have background checks and this is how they work. And if he was cleared by the FBI, then he hasn't committed a crime yet. Unfortunately, he did commit a crime, a pretty big crime, a mere week after he actually bought his firearms legally. So background checks, they wouldn't work. So I don't understand this whole notion of we need more gun control, because I've seen people post on social media, well, I 100% agree that if we had more gun control, this wouldn't have happened. Well, that's bullcrap. 9/11, no guns were used. Almost 3,000 people were killed. How about in Paris? There's virtually the entire country of France is virtually a gun-free zone, and about 130 people were killed there in an ISIS terrorist attack. What about San Bernardino, California? They have all the gun restrictions that anti-gunners want, and guess what? There was a terrorist attack in San Bernardino, California. So, what's your argument now? Well, there shouldn't be any guns. Well, how many of these terrorist attacks or mass shootings have happened in gun-free zones? Sandy Hook, gun-free zone. Columbine, gun-free zone. Virginia Tech, gun-free zone. San Bernardino, gun-free zone. Paris, gun-free zone. Pulse, gun-free zone. Gun-free zone, gun-free zone, gun-free zone. They're all gun-free zones. Now what's your argument? I don't see you coming up with anything else. See, the thing is, criminals don't care about laws. Murdering is already against the law. They don't care how they're going to murder somebody, even if 100% of the guns have been taken away and destroyed, which will never happen. I guarantee you that will never happen. They will still find a way to murder people. They can run over people with cars. They can stab a bunch of people. There have been mass stabbings in the past. They can create a bomb, which, by the way, this terrorist had an explosive device. It wasn't detonated, but apparently he did have an explosive device on top of the rifle and the handgun that he had. But he never used it. It was probably a last resort kind of thing. I don't really know. But it doesn't really matter. Again, 9/11 attackers, they didn't have guns. They had knives. They had planes. That's how they managed to kill 3,000 people. So, anyways, back to the whole, ISIS being related to ISIS thing. Well, all of this has to do with radical Islamic terrorists. Yeah, and I do believe that, even though we don't know 100% for sure if he was related to ISIS or if he was a lone wolf or whatever, blah blah blah. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That is a radical Islamic terrorist. San Bernardino, radical Islamic terrorist. Paris, radical Islamic terrorist. 9/11, radical Islamic terrorists. We don't have a gun problem in this country. We don't. We have a radical Islamic terrorist problem in the world, actually. Not just this country, in the world. But, look at Europe. Look at the Middle East. There's a lot of radical Islamic terrorists killing people, innocent people, all over the world. It's not just the United States. It's not just, the United States has the most guns in the world and therefore we have the most murders in the world. Look at Honduras. Honduras has some of the most strictest gun control laws in the entire world, yet they have the highest murder rate in the world. And of course, we can turn around and look at Switzerland. They have one of the highest gun ownerships in the world, kind of like the United States, and they have one of the lowest murder rates in the world. It's not the gun's fault. Actually, if you want to think about it, in areas where there are more guns, more legally owned guns, that is, there are typically less crimes. I mean, look at Texas. Look at, my home state of Missouri. Look at Kentucky. There are not that many mass shootings or even that many murders compared to places like New York, who has strict gun control, or California, who has strict gun control, or, New Jersey, wherever. All these very liberally run states or cities, they have a lot of gun control and they also have a lot of crime. Look at Chicago. Look at St. Louis. I used to live in St. Louis. St. Louis is pretty bad, and it's not even the worst. But yeah, look at all these liberally democratic run cities and states. They all have pretty high gun control and they have pretty high crime rates. But yet in the states and the cities where it's legal to conceal carry or open carry, there's significantly less crime and murders overall. So, again, we don't have a gun problem. Well, Florida's pretty gun friendly. Why did it happen in Florida? Well, again, it was a gun-free zone. Nightclubs, banks, schools, all these different places, they're gun-free zones. Malls, shopping malls, a lot of stores, they're gun-free zones. Restaurants, gun-free zones, which is actually a shame because gun-free zones are where all the attacks happen. When was the last time you saw an NRA convention shot up? When was the last time you saw a gun range shot up? Or a gun show or whatever? All of these gun-friendly events, a gun shop or, just whatever. All these gun-friendly places. When was the last time you actually saw them shot up? They're not. Because the shooters know that if they go in there, they're going to be stopped really quick, or at least someone's going to try to stop them pretty quick. And they don't want that. They want to go into a place where they have the least possible outcome of being stopped by somebody else with a gun. Hence, why they go to the gun-free zones. Sandy Hook, he went up against children. Unfortunately, he went up against children. But the children aren't going to fight back because they're pretty helpless against a fully grown man with a rifle and 2 pistols. You see where I'm going with this? Gun-free zones need to end. Gun-free zones are part of the problem. The other part of the problem is mentally deranged individuals and radical Islamic terrorists. And, I didn't mention this earlier, but who thinks that homosexuality is punishable by death? Radical Islamic terrorists. The same people who are against gun rights and for gay rights, which I am for gay rights. I am all for gay rights. If you haven't seen my video on my opinion of gay rights, go check it out. I'm all for gay rights. And a lot of other people that I know are for gay rights. Even the ones who are considered conservative or semi-conservative, they're for gay rights. But a lot of the people who are against gun rights and for gay rights are also, they're trying to protect the Muslims, which is where the radical Islamic terrorism comes from. Not all Muslims are bad. In fact, for every radical Islamic terrorist there's probably over 1,000 or maybe even 10,000 good Muslims who don't kill people. I am not saying that all Muslims are bad. But the thing is, the Muslim community needs to weed out the bad element of the radical Islamic terrorists, just like most Christians will say that the Westboro Baptist Church, we don't affiliate ourselves with them. Not to mention that the Westboro Baptist Church, what do? They protest, they hold signs, I don't see them starting riots or, going in and shooting up people. Maybe some of them do, but not as many as radical Islamic terrorists. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the Orlando mass shooting terrorist attack. It is a very unfortunate event. I do feel for the families of the ones who were lost, the ones who were injured, and even the police officer who was shot in the head. He was saved by his Kevlar helmet, but I'm sure that really hurt pretty bad. So anyway, keep them in your prayers, and that's all I got for you. Subscribe to my channel, like me on Facebook. I'm Redneck Mini 14, and until next time, be safe.